It's Cyhawk week here in Hawkeye country, and Iowa set to square off in Ames against Iowa State the last time the Hawkeyes traveled to Jack Trice Stadium. They stole a game against a preseason Cinderella favorite in the Big 12 Conference and potentially in the college football playoff. Kind of spoiled the early season suave of the Cyclones in 2021. We'll talk about my picks, my score predictions for the game, and all my week 2 picks in just a second. But first, I want to thank Ascent Nutrition and their awesome products. Visit them online at goascentnutrition.com. Talked about them at length. All their great health products, including their organic mold and mycotoxin-free coffee, their Ascent coffee. Visit goascentnutrition.com and use the code Hawkeyes for 15% off your total order. And folks, when you browse their products and make a purchase and use this code, you're not only supporting this channel from the Hawkeye of the Storm, you're supporting the business of a former Hawkeye, an Iowa graduate, Lance Shuttler, who's from small town Iowa, who started this business, has been tremendously successful with this business, and he is a Hawkeye at heart. Again, go ascentnutrition.com for more information. So week 2 of college football is here. Iowa State, the game all of us care about. But there are a lot of other big games in week 2, much better than week 1 as far as the lineup. Let's take a look at my picks for week 2 of college football. We start with Illinois and Kansas, the Illini and the Jayhawks doing battle on a Friday night. How about that? Of course, the Big Ten has integrated more Friday games in general. This one against a Big 12 foe in Kansas. I got Illinois winning this game. Right now, the line is Kansas by 3. This game is in Lawrence. I've got Illinois going on the road and beating Kansas. This, again, a Friday night game, 6:30 p.m. Central Time on ESPN2. Notre Dame and NC State, battle of half ACC member and a real ACC member. North Carolina State coming off a win on the road at UConn. They'll take on the Fighting Irish, who looked really good against Navy in week 0 and dominant against Tennessee State in week 2. But this will be their first real test. I've got Notre Dame winning, and I've got them covering the spread. They're favored by 7.5 on the road. How about the Colorado Buffs coming off that win against the reigning national runners-up in TCU? Deion Sanders with some serious swag heading into a showdown against Matt Rule's Nebraska Cornhuskers, and certainly Colorado is the trendy pick here. 3.5-point favorites at home. They were huge underdogs against TCU last week and won straight up. I think we're going to see the opposite take place here. I think Nebraska goes on the road and upsets Colorado. People counting out Nebraska. They actually looked pretty darn good defensively against Minnesota week 1, found a way to lose. But I just cannot see the sustainability of what Deion Sanders has built there early. I mean, it's impressive what he's done, don't get me wrong, but is it sustainable this early in his tenure? We'll find out, but I've got Nebraska going on the road and beating Colorado. Let's be frank. I mean, Matt Rule is new to Nebraska as well, so 2 new head coaches at their respective institutions. How about Utah and Baylor? Baylor coming off a miserable loss to Texas State. I've got Utah going on the road and winning at Baylor and covering the spread. They're favored by 7.5. Texas A&M and Miami. Miami played Miami last week. That's the U taking on Miami, Ohio. I've got Miami winning at home. They'll cover the 4.5. They're underdogs by 4.5. They'll cover that number and win straight up. Ole Miss taking on Tulane. Ole Miss scored a ton of points last week. Tulane, preseason top 25. They looked good last week against South Alabama. I have got Ole Miss going on the road and winning at Tulane. Perhaps Tulane will prove me wrong. Again, they proved a lot of people wrong in the bowl game with that win over USC at the turn of the year. But I've got Ole Miss going on the road and scoring a lot of points and winning. Ole Miss favored by 7.5. I've got them covering that number. Cincinnati taking on Pitt, the renewal of an old rivalry that's not been held for quite some time. I've got Pitt at home taking care of business, but it will be a close one. I think Cincinnati covers the number. Pitt favored by 7.5, but I like the Bearcats to win straight up. Oregon taking on Texas Tech. Texas Tech, another team that lost last week to Wyoming in an overtime marathon. I've got Oregon going on the road and winning in Lubbock, and I've got Texas Tech covering the spread at home. They'll play better this week, but too much offense from Oregon. We should see Justin Jacobs back. He missed week 1 due to an injury. I think we'll see him back. I think Texas Tech covers the 6.5. Texas and Alabama, what a game we had a year ago with Quinn Ewers and company. Of course, he got knocked out of that game. I've got Alabama winning at home, and I've got them covering the number. They're favored by 7.5. That number is not nearly big enough. I think they win this game by 14+. Auburn on the road at Cal. Late night game out in California. Could the time change affect Auburn. That's always possible. I do have Auburn going on the road and winning and covering. I just don't think Cal's very good. Auburn 6.5-point favorites. I think they win by 7 or 8. And Wisconsin looking for revenge on Washington State. Remember, the Cougars came to Madison last year and won at Wisconsin. I've got Wisconsin winning on the road, but I do think Washington State, it's going to be hard. It's hard for Big Ten teams to go all the way out west. Kirk Ferentz has talked about that, playing the West Coast late game. I think Wazoo covers the number. Wisconsin, 6.5-point road favorites. I think Wazoo covers that number. I do think Wisconsin exacts revenge and gets one on the road in Washington. And that brings us to Iowa and Iowa State. The annual Cy-Hawk rivalry being renewed yet again here in 2023. Iowa State, pretty darn impressive against UNI. If you missed my preview of this game earlier in the week, I'll throw it up here in the corner. Click on this little tab up here, and you can check out my preview. And, of course, Don Patterson also provided some insight on our post-game show last week. You can check that out up here as well. But I think Iowa's going to win this game. I think they're going to win it comfortably. I'll just say that right now. I think I kind of previewed that in my preview. I just think that Iowa State has made a living in this series of being able to have just better skill position athletes. And I don't know that they have better skill position athletes this year. Maybe they do, and potential's there, but a lot of young people at tight end. They went really tight end heavy last week. They got some skill there. Abu Sama looked good at running back. Cartavius Norton looked good at back as well, but I don't think either of those guys are a David Montgomery or a Breece Hall. Jalen Noel was underwhelming, to say the least. 4 catches for 6 yards. Yes, I understand all these Cyclone fans have yelled at me this week. We didn't run very many plays, like 45 plays for the game. Well, there was a reason for that. Yes, they had a pick 6 from Jeremiah Cooper. He had a couple picks in the game. The defensive backfield looked good for Iowa State. But UNI also controlled the clock late in the game. Yes, they were down big, and Iowa State was probably content with that. But there also is a reason why Iowa State had just 45 possessions in the game. And I don't think that's just because of the defensive score from Jeremiah Cooper and the success they had on special teams and the shorter fields that they benefited from. I will say this, Iowa's got to run the ball better. I think they will. They ran for under 90 yards against Utah State. So obviously that's an indication to a lot of people that, hey, they're not going to be able to run the football against Iowa State. They can't run the football against a Mountain West team that went 6-7 last year. They're not going to be able to do it against a Big 12 team in Iowa State on the road. I think Iowa will be able to run the ball. Maybe not for 4 yards a carry, but I think they'll get close to a $130, $140. I think it'll be enough. And here's the other thing. If they can hit on 1 or 2 big plays down the field like they did last week against Utah State. Remember the big play, second play from scrimmage to Seth Anderson last week? And it was a nice double move by Seth. DB fell down, and they benefited with the touchdown. They can get 1 or 2 big plays. That might be enough. I just don't know where the offense is going to come from by Iowa State. Again, some young talent, the guys I named earlier. I just don't know if they're going to be able to score points against this Phil Parker secondary. And Iowa's defense was not perfect last week, so you better bet Phil Parker had those guys in the film room and working hard this week. I think they'll be better. I think Iowa will hold Iowa State down. I think if Iowa can eclipse the 20-point mark, they win going away. I've got Iowa 26, and I squinted enough to get Iowa State to 17. 26-17, the final. Iowa over Iowa State in Ames. Iowa takes a Cy-Hawk game for the first time in 2 years, and they'll be happy campers. This fan base will be positive. I think Iowa's going to look good in Ames yet again. They've won 5 straight games in Jack Trice Stadium. Looking forward to a showdown. 2:30 p.m. Central Time on Fox, and join post-game coverage right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm following the game. Keep it locked right here each and every week for Iowa postgame right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm.